Hello and welcome to Real Life, Real Love. I am your host, Sarah Michelle, and I am a sex, love, and intimacy coach. Today we have Celeste Rose with us, and she is a sex, love, and relationship coach. We are actually friends and have known each other for quite some time. So we talk about a lot of similar stuff, but come at it from a different background in life as well as different training. So she will have much more to add to everything today. Why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce the topic.
Okay. Yeah. So my name is Celeste Rose, and I am a sex, love, and relationship coach. My business is Sensual Leadership Academy. And I work with impact driven men and women, people in positions of leadership, business owners that are really struggling with a lack of confidence. And so, what I help them do, I believe that how you have sex is how you live your life. So, I actually help people tap into feeling powerful and confident in their sex lives and how that then expands into their leadership and their business.
That sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
So today, Celeste is going to be sharing with us a little bit more about how having a self-pleasure practice can help you feel more self-love and confidence in your dating and relationships and even your business.
Mhm.
So do you want to start off by just kind of sharing like your background of how you came to discovering that self-pleasure was so important, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit more detail about the self-pleasure.
Yeah. So my background actually is in corporate coaching and sales leadership. I spent a majority of my career in the corporate world. And as I kind of like climbed the corporate ladder and I got to this point where I was in a position of leadership, I was making more money than I ever thought possible. And I also had a lot of responsibility. And what ended up happening is I had this like deep sense of imposter syndrome. Like, when are people going to figure out that I don't belong here, that I don't know what I'm doing? And I just like, yeah, it was like this lack of confidence kind of caused me a lot of stress in my leadership career. um so especially being like a female in a largely male dominated environment, I didn't know how to own my sensuality and my femininity, and or even feel safe to be that person in that environment. So at the end of 2018, I actually got laid off from my corporate job. And I look back and I'm like, wow, I'm a powerful manifester, because I remember just prior to that saying, I want the life I don't need a vacation from. And then bam, lost my job. So rather than going back to the corporate world, I thought, well, I'm already a coach. I'll just coach women. How hard can that be? And then I realized, oh, like there's a lot of actual work here to do, healing work for myself and building my own confidence and self love so that I can be able to then lead and guide other people that experienced a similar thing as me. So I started with body confidence and I got my certification as a body confidence and well being coach. And then for me, really realized that this sexuality piece was really integral to who I am as a human being. And I had a lot of trauma around that, a lot of religious conditioning and shame, a lot of trauma around childhood sexual abuse, and then a lot of like limiting negative sexual experiences just growing up as a female in a patriarchal society. And so I found a program, the Tantric Institute of Integrated Sexuality, which I think is now called the Vita Institute, and I started a regular self pleasure practice. Um, and it was crazy because it was like this tantric approach is that sexuality and self pleasure can actually be a path of greater levels of awakening, and can actually be a spiritual path. And so it brought together these two parts of my life that had been so kind of tumultuous or painful. And it's been really liberating, that experience. And so I had this desire to create a membership group so that I could teach other people to do that. But it took me a couple years to like really learn and experience it myself. So it could be like, yeah, like sharing from that place of personal experience.
So I first started my own self-pleasure when I was married.
Hmm.
And that was an interesting dynamic, which I won't speak too much to now since we're not together and I don't really have a lot of permission to speak on that. But Could you talk maybe to the point of how like self-pleasure isn't just for single people?
Yeah, totally. So, I've been self-pleasuring since I don't even know how old I was, right? And there was always so much guilt and shame. Like I believed that if I self-pleasured, I was going to go to hell. And so what really ended up happening is my nervous system kind of encoded pleasure with shame. And even like, and so receiving it from outside of myself, I didn't have as much shame. um but what I noticed is that I always had, I wouldn't call it a practice, a self-pleasure practice. I would just kind of like whip out the vibrator, give myself a couple orgasms and move on with my day. But there wasn't really this sense of like satisfaction. To me it felt kind of hollow. And it always felt like something I had to keep hidden. Like, if he knew that I was self pleasuring, would he think that he wasn't good in bed, or that I wasn't satisfied with him, or, that all these stories that we tell ourselves. Um, and so when I joined the Tantric Institute, it actually like gave me permission to have a self-pleasure practice. So I would just tell my partner, "Hey, I'm going in the bedroom. I'm doing my practice. I'll be in there for about an hour. Please don't interrupt me unless it's like really important." And I would just be very clear, like, this is what I'm doing. And what ended up happening is as I went through the self-pleasure practices afterwards, I would be like, "Hey, what are you doing? You want to come upstairs on your lunch break?" Um, and so it really like, not only was I experiencing more pleasure in my body, but I was also gaining confidence that I could then bring into my sexual interactions or intimate interactions with him. And it gave me just so much more permission to explore, so much more awareness on what my body likes and what my body doesn't like. And I was then able to like communicate with him how I wanted to be touched, how I didn't want to be touched, what I really loved, or and even incorporating other tools like breath work and movement and sound. It's just opened up so much more. And so I think that anything you want to do well, it's important to practice at. And you don't practice in the game, you practice before the game. And so that's really how I look at having a self pleasure practice, is that you're practicing on your own so you can fully embody the experience and learn, and then you take it into the game. Or, I mean, I was watching Sex, Love, and Goop last night, and she said that sex is basically just how adults play. And I loved that example of like, yeah, we get to play, it gets to be fun. But so many of us just have a lot of guilt and shame that takes us out of that experience.
Yeah, I love that. It is how adults play. I mean, I love to have so much play in it. And I've said this before on this podcast, but I'm a Pisces, so I naturally love like making things playful and sensual and all that emotional, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm with a Virgo.
Yeah. I'm into Virgo too.
So in a lot of ways, it's amazing to have that balance. And it's my sister sign. So it really is opposite attracts in some ways. Um, but we do have different approaches to it.
Mhm.
That might be interesting to speak to. So in Tantra, or maybe I should say, not in your training, but in what you share with clients,
Mhm.
do you talk about how there's like the different elements and how people kind of come? So, like, I know that I'm more of a water element where he's more of an earth element and what that kind of means in the body. Do you, whether you talk about it through elements or in some other way, do you kind of help people understand their style and their partner's style so that they can figure out how to mingle them?
Yeah, so one of the things I do is have them kind of look at one of the teachers that I really admire. Her name is Jaya, and she does erotic blueprint. And so with the erotic blueprint, you can kind of discover where your turn on lies. Like, there's different things that people access for arousal and turn on. And so that could be kinky, energetic, sexual. And there's yeah, so when you notice like how you engage versus how your partner engages, you can kind of find some common ground and bring them together. With the tantric approach, we do work through embodying different elements through the different chakras. And so having that quality of water, or having that quality of air, or having the quality of ether that we can bring into the sexual experience. And so that's a little bit more tantric. But yeah, like exploring how those different elements can change your experience. Where if you're focused on your womb space and you are, really embodying the element of water, the emotionality of that, the fluidity of that, and how that can really change the essence of the pleasure that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want to take a moment then and share a little bit more about your membership and kind of
Yeah.
what people can expect?
Yes. So a lot of people, I think, at as it started, I think a lot of people are like, "Whoa, like a self pleasure membership? What is that?" Especially in the Midwest. Like, I think a lot of people are just kind of watching vicariously and not really like ready to take that step yet. But it's called frequency of pleasure, and the reason why I named it that is not only are people who experience pleasure happier people. Neurologically, the more frequently we experience pleasure, the more we then choose pleasurable experiences. And when we're not experiencing pleasure, our nervous systems can kind of become pleasure starved. And so what ends up happening is we feel kind of full of craving. And so when you're full of craving, you kind of like reach for the thing that is going to give you that immediate gratification. And so maybe that's sugar, or maybe it's retail therapy, or maybe it's, your drug of choice or whatever. But what ends up happening is if we're not fulfilled and satisfied, if our nervous system is not feeling this sense of satisfaction, it can actually negatively impact us. And so really bringing in pleasure in an intentional way, and bringing in the different holistic embodiment tools of breath work, of movement, of sound, of meditation and mindfulness, we actually can use a self pleasure experience much like a meditative experience or a yoga experience, where we're getting into our body, we're feeling our emotions, we're working through the limitations, the blocks, we're releasing the traumatic imprint of the past, or the somatic imprint of past experiences. And then we bring in pleasure to rewire those beliefs or those conditioning to something that supports us to fully thrive. Whether that's in our life, in our relationship, in our career, I believe that it's all linked. And again, how we do one thing is how we do everything. So bringing consciousness to self pleasure, where you're focused on the journey, not the outcome, changes how you view life. And it's really like, yeah, it's changed my level of acceptance for myself. It's changed how I feel about my body. There's this deep level of gratitude that I have when I'm able to have these experiences. And it also feels really empowering when you know that you can create pleasure inside of yourself. It's not something that comes from outside of you. It can, and it feels really good when it does. But when, especially as a single person, there's this if you believe it comes from outside of you, or if you feel a resistance to self-pleasure, it can be disempowering because you feel like you can't get what you need unless you're in a relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I had something on my mind as you were talking. I was going to ask you a question about. Okay, well, I have a different question.
Yeah.
So, do you have an example, either from your own life or maybe from a client story, of something like specific, like after they did the pleasure practice, some way that it's shifted in their life, how they've seen it?
Yeah. So I have one client, and all my one-on-one clients automatically get a year access to the membership. And so one of the clients that I've worked with through the one-on-one coaching practice, she is just like eating up the practices. Like, it just so speaks to her. And I really believe that we all have our own transmission. And when someone feels drawn to that, it's like you're speaking on a deeper level than just the analytical mind. And so, because of the relationship that we've built and the trust, she's able to drop in and have these deep transformative experiences through these practices. And the message that she sent me last week was, oh my gosh, this practice just, I cried, I released, I worked with my inner child, and I just felt this deeper sense of compassion for myself than I've ever felt. And that's really what it's about, is there can be this concept, or like, like your mind's concept of what self-love is, but when you actually experience it in your body, this level of compassion that you have for yourself, for your inner child, maybe for the parts of you that experienced pain in the past, or maybe for the parts of you that made decisions that weren't great. Like, we can recognize that, oh, I'm just human. I'm just having this human experience. And it can be really challenging, but it can also be really fun. And how can I like ride this wave of this human experience, experiencing the things that are, you know, difficult, but also bringing in pleasure so that I don't have to suffer.
Yeah. So one of the things I feel like I'm hearing through everything you're saying is, in society, a lot of times sex is about the orgasm, the climax, right? So that it can even be quick, because it's like there's not necessarily a lot of connection between you and your partner as you're both focused on like achieving this goal.
Mm-hmm.
But this self pleasure practice is not necessarily about the climax. It's about all the other stuff around it, which helps you to become more aware of everything so that you can
Yeah.
bring a more, is it fair to say, a more holistic approach? Like a,
Yeah, it's basically holistic sexuality. It's using sexuality and pleasure and your experience in your body to help you heal the pains of the past, to help you rewire your inner reality so that you can then experience something different in your external reality. And um, there was one thing that one experience that was really impactful that I want to share about, that I believe was possible because of my self pleasure practice.
okay.
There was one time that I was in an intimate experience with my partner, and something didn't feel right. Like, I noticed my body shut down, and I know, like, I could feel my body close up. And I told him, I said, I'm not sure what's going on. Can we stop for just a second? And he said, sure. And so I checked in, and through these practices, I've learned how to tap into the inner parts of myself to see what I need. And so I checked in, and it was not that I didn't want to continue. It was that there was an emotion that was coming through to the surface that I wasn't, that my nervous system wasn't ready to feel, or it wasn't allowing me to feel. And so I had to stop. But then when I told him, oh, it's just an emotion that I was afraid of feeling, are you okay if I cry? And he said, yeah, I'm okay if you cry. Like, yeah. And so we started again. And immediately, and this is like super graphic, so I'll be immediately I started like sobbing, but also had this massive orgasm, and I totally squirt like everywhere. And it was such a sense of relief and release and pleasure all at the same time. So, yes, I was releasing something that was being stored in my nervous system. So it was therapeutic, but it was also pleasurable. And I think that we think that, oh, like sex should only feel good, like pleasure should only feel good. And sometimes when your body feels safe enough, those parts that are taking away from your experience, or blocking you from pleasure, they will come to the surface to be healed and integrated. And so that's just an example of what can happen here, that when you're ready to feel your emotions and you feel safe feeling your emotions because you know how to do it, that you can actually have massive orgasmic expansive experiences that involve tears. Maybe they involve like noises. Maybe your body moves in a way that you didn't expect it to move. But it's really learning how to trust the wisdom of your own body, knowing that it knows what to do, it knows how to heal when we give it the space and permission to do so.
I'm making notes. I know what I was going to ask earlier, which now feels a little awkward going backwards. But you were talking earlier about how when you started your practice, you fell more in love with yourself
Mhm.
and other things, but the falling in love with your body was the part that made me wonder, did you notice when I started doing a self-pleasure practice, I just felt like my face was younger. I mean, I didn't do it to look younger. I just felt like I looked younger and like I had this great energy on my face instead of walking around with this like resting bitch face constantly.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like this inner level of confidence that you feel like your nervous system is nourished and it's satisfied. And there's this vibrant glow that takes place. And so, like, when I look over the last year, like, when I look at pictures of myself now, I'm like, damn, like, I look good, even though I haven't lost weight. Like, I always thought, oh, I have to lose weight in order to be beautiful. No, I just need to love myself and I need to like fill myself up. And that sensuality, the experience in the body, it's like being grateful that you have a human body that can experience so much pleasure, as opposed to saying, oh, my body doesn't look the way I want and I have to change it before I can experience what I want. This approach is like, no, like you're worthy of pleasure now. You're deserving of pleasure now. And when you give yourself what you need or what you crave, it's this, yeah, this sense of like, I deserve it. I'm worthy of it. And then you go to the grocery store and you're like shopping around and you just had this massive orgasm that blew your heart open and connected you with God and like nobody else knows. So you just feel like a badass. Just like, yeah.
I have to say that was one of my favorite parts about becoming a business owner and working from home was um, being able to do that in the middle of the day.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like take a lunch break and explore self pleasure and then go back to work and watch your creative juices flow.
Yeah. The coach I was working with at the time had this saying that, like, if you have sex, I shouldn't say sex necessarily. If you climax and you feel energized, then you should start your day off with it. If
Mhm.
you climax and you feel relaxed afterwards and like you want to rest, you should use it as a way to reward yourself. And that was how she taught us to use it with our businesses. And so,
Mm.
and I kind of found that it shifted for me. I wasn't consistently one or the other,
Mhm.
but I started using, that's how I started using the self pleasure practice was intentionally for my business, not for my relationship or for myself. I obviously had benefits in those areas,
Yeah, totally.
but the goal at the time was my business.
Business. And I feel like that's what most of our goals are. Most of us, a lot of us, at least in the coaching realm or in the business owner realm, we're very focused on how do we make our business successful? How do we get ourselves out there? How do we magnetize clients? How do we make money? And then the kind of like better sex and relationship stuff is a result of that. And one of my teachers said that being a business owner, your business is like the best guru that you will ever have because you have to work through your feelings of unworthiness, your imposter syndrome, your fear. Like you have to work through all of those things.
Yeah, that's exactly when I did my coaching certification years ago. That lady told us over and over, building your business is the biggest personal development program you'll ever go through. And
Yeah.
I don't feel like it stopped. Like I was telling you before we got on this call, I've been doing this for 7 years and I'm like, I feel like every stage there's something new to discover. Luckily, it's not like it was in the beginning. In the beginning, every time I'd hit a new stage, I'd get crazy sick, like lose my voice, or it
Mhm.
would be massive.
Yeah.
Now I don't get that. It's just like, ooh, okay, I can tell something new is coming up and this is uncomfortable. What can we do to work through it?
Yeah.
And I
Well,
do.
and
Oh, go ahead.
we don't wait for our nervous system to regulate. We have to regulate it for ourselves. And we can wait, like we can just kind of ride the waves. But if you have a practice and you have tools that you can bring in, what maybe would take a month or two before, maybe only takes a day or two. And so we will have dips and we will have, those peaks and valleys, and that's just life. But learning how to navigate that and bring in those tools to support you is really powerful. And one thing that I wanted to mention, you said if you feel energized by an orgasmic experience, do that in the morning, and if it calms you down, do it in the evening. One thing that I do as well is I'll do a self-pleasure practice, not orgasm, and then you can actually store that orgasmic energy in your body so you can access it. It's like it then becomes available to you. And so orgasm, yes, it feels good and it's a sense of release, but that sexual energy can also be used to fuel what you're creating in your life.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite things I learned when I first started learning tantra was to like pull that energy
Mhm,
through your body and how to
mhm,
circulate it and stuff, which doing it through a sexual practice was new to me.
mhm.
But I am someone who, like, I'm trained in massage and body work, and then I am also trained in a couple different forms of energy medicine or whatever you want to call it. So the idea of feeling energy in my body wasn't new to me,
Mhm.
but learning how to circulate that, especially with my breath, was really, really cool.
Yeah, yeah. It completely transforms your experience, and the breath and the movement of, or allowing the pleasure to expand, can create different kinds of orgasmic experiences. So full body orgasms, heart orgasms, like that one, I will never forget that experience. It was just like my heart blew wide open and I sobbed and cried, but it was like this sense of like so much gratitude, and almost remembering like, oh yeah, I wanted to be human, I wanted to be here, I wanted this experience, all of it, not just the good parts, I wanted all of it. And I think that that like duality is what really um makes it special.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, thank you so much for joining me
Yeah,
today and
you're
sharing
welcome.
everything. Do you want to take a moment and just let people know how they can get in contact with you
Yeah.
or your business if they're interested in anything?
Yeah, so the business is Sensual Leadership Academy, and the website's just sensualleadershipacademy.com. The membership's on there. It's called Frequency of Pleasure. And in it, it's not all about self pleasure, but it incorporates pleasure as a holistic embodiment tool. Really, just learning how to work with your mind, your body, and your emotions, and like connect everything so that you can be in alignment. And so there's that. I also do one-on-one coaching, and you can find me on Instagram at sensual_leadership_academy.
All right. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much. And
thank
for
you.
everyone who watched today and enjoyed, please feel free to like, share, subscribe to the channel, or leave a comment below. If you have any questions or comments for either me or Celeste Rose, you're welcome to leave them below. Thank you, and we'll see you
Thank
next week.
you.